As the Arizona Cardinals head into week 8 on their bye week and currently riding a 5-game losing streak, what are the Arizona Cardinals' odds of being buyers in the trade deadline, or are they going to be sellers? Let's dive into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another video. Davin, do me a huge favor, smack up that like button and subscribe for more Arizona Cardinals content. On this channel, we're covering the Arizona Cardinals news, breaking news, conversational pieces, everything surrounding your favorite team. So subscribe it up. It's absolutely for free. Today, we're going to be diving into the whole trade deadline situation. If you guys do not know, in 2025, the trade deadline is supposed to be set for Tuesday, November 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, the Arizona Cardinals do have their Week 9 matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys on primetime Monday Night Football, literally the day after the Dallas Cowboys game for the Arizona Cardinals in terms of the trade deadline, right? And as of right now, we're sitting at 2-5. I would have loved to be talking about a real situation where the Cardinals could potentially be buyers, but let's be realistic here. The Cardinals right now are on a 5-game losing streak. We are on the wrong side of very, very close games, and it doesn't seem like Jonathan Gannon or Drew Petzing or Nick Rallis or anybody in this organization is going to be able to find a way to win these close games. Now, would I rather take the Arizona Cardinals losing these close games as opposed to get absolutely annihilated? I mean, I don't know, man. I think there's pros and cons for either of the situation. It doesn't feel like the Arizona Cardinals are going to be making any coaching changes in the near future. Most likely, if the season continues to go sideways and go upside down, maybe changes will happen at the end of the season on Black Monday. But as of right now, a big topic is going to be, are the Arizona Cardinals going to be buyers or sellers? And they're most likely going to be sellers, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to be talking about some players that the Arizona Cardinals could potentially offload to other teams that are competitive and potentially going on a playoff push or maybe a Super Bowl run. The Cardinals have some really good pieces, primarily on the defensive side of the ball. Now, there's some players I'm going to have on this list here that I don't want to part ways with. Like, I really would love for them to retire as a Cardinal, but you got to really realistically look at the business side of it all. And if the Cardinals are building for 2026 and potentially getting a brand new coaching staff, we might as well kind of set them up for the best position available. Now, I'm not in tank mode at all, but let's be real. How many realistic wins are the Cardinals going to have for the remaining of the season? I don't know. I truly don't know, especially if you're not able to close out games. But let's go ahead and talk about this whole situation that we're dealing with right now. Like I said, I would rather not be in this situation, but this is where the Cardinals are at. We're a 2-5 team, and we're not trending in the direction to potentially fix this. Now, it can get fixed, but history tells us that it's not going to get fixed. But let's go and dive right into it. Let's first talk about my first player here. It's going to be none other than Calais Campbell. He is going to be one of my guys that I do not want the Cardinals to part ways with. I would love Calais Campbell to retire as a Cardinal. We let him go once, and I absolutely hated the fact that the Cardinals ended up letting him walk over to a different team. I believe this was Jacksonville Jaguars, where in negotiations, he was actually saying, call them back, see if they're able to match it, because he wanted to stay in Arizona. Of course, he ended up going through multiple different teams, and at the age of 39, he's still very productive as a defensive lineman. Now, of course, Calais Campbell is one of those veterans that potentially can help a team that's competing for the playoffs. He's still doing it through 7 games right now. He's got 3 sacks. Now, a lot of those sacks came in the first 2 games. He was really starting off hot with his head on fire. He was doing fantastic, but he also has 10 pressures, 2 quarterback hurries, and 5 quarterback hits. He's got 12 solo tackles and 19 combined tackles at the age of 39. Now, projectedly, I might have him a little high in terms of value wise, but like I said, I mean, I feel like Calais Campbell brings so much more than just his big body and big frame on the defensive line. He brings a level of veteranness that you don't really see in the NFL very often, right? We got a absolute mentor, right? The guy that's going to be able to kind of, put his arm around any young defensive lineman and try to mentor him, right? He does more than just what his production on the field is. He is going to try to hype up these young guys. We've seen him multiple times with Darius Robinson as well as Walter Nolan. Our rookie, they ended up coming out with the 16th overall pick. He's tried his best to mentor these guys, and that is exactly what he brings as well. So I have him as a projected 4th or 5th round pick in terms of what the Cardinals could potentially get him back. Now, also keep in mind, the Cardinals have him on I believe it was a 1-year deal, so there's not really much, I guess, that we're gonna really get affected by. The only thing that we really get affected by is obviously fans. Like we want, or at least I would love him to retire as a Cardinal. So I don't want to part ways with them, but maybe the Cardinals can potentially get some more draft capital to use to maybe move up in the draft to potentially get a guy that they absolutely would love. So I got Calais Campbell up here as a guy that the Cardinals could potentially trade away. I want to be very, very clear again. I do not want to trade him away, but at the age of 39, he's still able to be productive on a defensive line. So he's one of those guys that, potentially keep your eyes on in terms of will the Cardinals get rid of him or not, right? Another guy that, I want to talk about is Davin Tomlinson. When we brought him in, we were supposed to be bringing in a guy that was be able to stop the run, and we're not doing very good at stopping the run, and that's not all Dalvin Tomlinson's fault, right? It's not one of those things where, oh, we brought you in for this job and you're not doing it, get rid of him. No, I think he's still a guy that's productive, a big body guy in the middle of the field that is supposed to stop the run. It's just with what we have going on right now, that seems to be another weakness for the Cardinals, and this happened since last year and now trending into this year. As of right now, Dalvin Tomlinson is 31 years old, so he's up there in age. He does have 0 sacks right now, 3 QB pressures. He's got 1 hurry and 1 ball batted down, 7 solo tackles, 12 combined tackles, and I have him projected as a 5th or maybe a 6th round pick for any team out there that could potentially go after him and want to get a veteran. And he's solid, right? He's a solid piece. I don't think the Arizona Cardinals really, like, they jumped on the opportunity to bring him to the Cardinals the moment that the Cleveland Browns ended up releasing him. And honestly, I think that was a really cool thing that Monty Ossenfort ended up, being aggressive. Because one thing I would say about Monty Ossenfort is that he's not very aggressive when it comes down to the free agency market. I think this year was probably his best free agency that he ever had. I mean, he had more money to kind of play with, and obviously Michael Bidwell opened up the purse strings a little bit more. And of course, you bring in Josh Sweat, those type of guys, and you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson. But as of right now, Dalvin Tomlinson is signed up until the 2026 season, but the guaranteed salary stops this year for the Cardinals. We have him under a $5 million guarantee this year, and I believe he's like a $7.6 million dollar cap hit per over the cap. So we're not going to be really dealing with a big hit if the Cardinals do decide to like trade him away. It's going to be like less than $2 million in terms of dead money, as well as like cap savings. I think it would far benefit the Cardinals to potentially move off of Dalvin Tomlinson. Like, I would rather get rid of Dalvin as opposed to Calais, just because of the personal, right? The personal side of it, all the attachment of Calais Campbell. So maybe the Cardinals can offload him for a 5th or 6th, and I get it. These aren't values that you're like, oh man, you got to trade him. It's going to be really good for the Cardinals. I get it. At the end of the day, the Cardinals don't have a lot of players that we have, but he can definitely very well be a player to kind of offload to a different team if needed. And now other players I want to talk about that I have not made graphics for, Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols. I think it's time. Just get rid of them. Try to see if you can get a 7th rounder or 6th rounder for these guys. Like, they're not able to stay healthy. Justin Jones, as of right now, is still hurt. Bilal Nichols came back, and then he didn't play the next game. It's just, it's a frustrating thing to see for Arizona Cardinal fans, being the fact that they were brought in as Iron Man last year in 2024, and they're just not been able to be a productive players on this team. And I get it, free agency's fool's gold, but Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, those are 2 players right there that the Arizona Cardinals ended up using pretty solid money in 2024's free agency, and they just haven't been able to shake out for the Arizona Cardinals. Let me give a real quick shout out here to the sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan here on YouTube, the guys that are keeping the lights on. That's going to be none other than Sleeper. They are the proud sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan throughout the entirety of the 2025 season. The NFL season is here, which means you now have a chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy football. Pick on stats for stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, and fantasy points, and more for up to 100 times the payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you can win big. Use promo code AZSF. You can get up to a $100 deposit match on your first initial deposit. Terms and conditions apply. And yes, they will also provide you with a free $20 just entry by using my promo code AZSF to go ahead and try their app out. Now, also keep in mind, this is no deposit needed. So go ahead and make sure you take advantage of this great deal. You got the $100 deposit match as well as the free $20 entry on Sleeper. Proud sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan throughout the entirety of the 2025 season. But let's continue to talk about who else the Arizona Cardinals could potentially unload on the trade deadline. Another player that I don't want the Arizona Cardinals to move off of, but let's be real. It's been a couple years now that everybody's been talking about Budda Baker. But let's be real here. Budda Baker is a Super Bowl and a playoff caliber player. But unfortunately, his career has been all with the Arizona Cardinals since we ended up drafting him in the second round in the Steve Keim days. And as of right now, he's just been nothing more than an absolute gem to have on this roster. But let's be real here. I don't think his production has met what we've seen in the prior years, and I don't think that's all his fault. Now, he is getting up there in age. Right now, he's 29 years old, and usually safeties don't, what's the word? That they don't last very long in the NFL. That's why when you have a player like Budda Baker or Tyrann Mathieu, right, they are very, very good assets, especially in that position in the safety role, because Budda Baker, as of right now, is a very good player still, but the numbers just don't match up, and that's probably because of the defensive scheme or just not really having the ability to stack the box or send him on blitzes as much as we used to be able to do. Right now, we also do have Daniel Taylor Demerson if the Cardinals do decide to kind of move off of him. We also did draft another guy in Keaton Crawford, and I don't think any of those two guys are better than Budda Baker, but this might be a real year where the Cardinals potentially decide to move off of him because they could potentially get a third rounder or heck, maybe even a fourth round pick. Of course, I wouldn't get rid of Budda for a fourth or a fifth. It would have to be something that would be beneficial for the Cardinals to move off of him. But with what he's done so far this year through 7 games, he has 1 pressure. He's been targeted 27 times, and those balls that were thrown his way, there was 19 of those balls were completed out of 27. He's got 23 solo tackles, 49 combined tackles, and he's 29 years old. He's got no interceptions, no sacks. And last year, I feel like we just used him a lot better compared to this year. I feel like this defensive style that we're playing a little bit more, where we're playing a little bit more as like we're not playing to win, we're playing like not to lose a game, and that's something that you probably don't want to have as your identity for the defensive side of the ball. But like, let's be real, I feel like we've been a lot more conservative on the defensive side of the ball, and we're just not using Budda Baker to his ability that we can use him as, right? So, but as of right now, Budda Baker's contract is probably one of the highest defensive player, that we ended up bringing in or that we've had on this roster for a little bit now. Of course, Josh Sweat is also up there as well. We ended up bringing him this last year, but Budda Baker is up there in terms of a lot of money being hit on the cap space as well as dead money. Now, I want to be very, very clear. I do not want to get rid of Budda Baker, but maybe this might be the year where the Cardinals do offload him. But let's look at 2025. He does have a guaranteed salary this year of $7 million, a cap hit of 10.8. Now, if the Cardinals do decide to trade him, we will have a dead money of $3 million, but we have a cap savings of 7.7. Now, also keep in mind in 2026, that's where the cap number gets a little bit more expensive. The cap hit in 2026 for the Cardinals is going to be $19.2 million. So his money, like his guaranteed salary doesn't go up, but what the Cardinals are going to be paying him is a lot of money. So we can definitely very well save that money and maybe allocate it over to a different player or whatever the situation might be. So we do have Budda Baker under contract until 2027 technically, but his guaranteed salary stops in 2026. And if the Cardinals do decide to trade him away, there will be a lot of cap savings for a specific player that we can allocate to other players on this roster as well. Now, Budda Baker might be a realistic, move because the Cardinals right now are 2-5. And I know there's some people out there that are really upset with me because I'm not being positive or I'm not being kind of, trying to sell you guys a bag of goods. We're 2-5 right now. Like, that's the realistic nature of the Arizona Cardinals. I would love to make a video and say the Cardinals could be buyers and get this guy, this guy, this guy. But realistically, right now, the Cardinals are in no position to be buyers at all. Everybody in the NFC West are now leaps and bounds better than the Cardinals. We're 2-5. We're 0-2 in the division. We put ourselves in a hole that I don't think we're going to be able to get ourselves out of. The beginning part of the schedule was supposed to be the easiest part of the schedule for the Cardinals, and unfortunately, we weren't able to take advantage of the situation that was laid out in front of us. So we'll see what happens. Other players that I did not make graphics for. I want to talk about Kyler Murray a little bit. I don't think Kyler Murray is one of those guys that's going to be a future point for the Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals are very, they would be very benefited to potentially move off of them this year, or if not this year, by the end of the year, right? But I do believe because there's a lot of jobs on the line, we have Jonathan Gannon, Petzing. They're going to try to save their jobs, and of course, their best, chances of winning is probably going to be Kyler Murray over Jacoby Brissett. Although I feel like Jacoby Brissett runs a better offense and there's a lot more production on with Jacoby Brissett. They're going to be riding off with Kyler Murray because that is their franchise quarterback, and what they're paying him, he's paid to be the franchise quarterback, and that's going to be the way that it's going to all shake out. But I do believe that Kyler Murray Probably will not last but more than 2 years with this organization, because it's starting to wear thin, right? Like what we've seen with this offense with him on the helm, it's starting to wear thin. Ended up seeing this tweet out there here from Theo Mackey, which is a very, very eye-opening here in my personal opinion. For the people out there that don't feel like with the 2-game sample size that Jacoby Brissett is running this offense better than Kyler Murray, I don't know what to tell you, but this is just another thing to kind of add out there. Theo Mackey ended up putting this out. Cardinals QBs by conversion of 3rd and 15 or longer since Gannon and Petzing took over. Jacoby Brissett is already at 3 of those conversions when he's only started 2 games with the Cardinals. And those are against pretty solid defense compared to what we had, cupcake defense that we were playing earlier in the season. Josh Dobbs, yeah, remember that name? He ended up having 1 of those. And then Kyler Murray has 0 3rd and 15 or longer conversions. It's crazy to see it. And then on the bottom tweet, it says conversion rates by QBs on those plays, excluding non-QB runs. Brissett with 3 and 4, Dobbs with 1 and 9, Murray with 0 and 20, and then Tune with 0 and 3. It's just, let's be real here, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know how else to shake it. Jacoby Brissett runs the system a lot better than Kyler Murray, at least with the 2-game sample size that we've seen. He runs the system better. Now, like I said before, they're going to be rolling with Kyler. At this point, it is what it is. I really got nothing much to say other than let's see how this rest of the season plays out. But it is what it is at this point. I would think that the Cardinals would be very smart to potentially offload him to a potential playoff caliber team. We're not that team this year. We're not that team this year. Let's be absolutely honest. So let's see what the Cardinals decide to do. We've already heard Gannon multiple times say that he is the QB and nothing has changed. So let's see how it all shakes out. Now, another player on the offensive side of the ball that I'm really thinking like maybe the Cardinals can offload, Zay Jones. Zay Jones is definitely one of those guys that within the last 2 games has had crazy numbers, right? He's already had 12 receptions and 183 yards, and most of those yardage came from these last 2 games. I think before he came in these last 2 games with Jacoby Brissett, he might have had like less than 10 yards, and that was like with 4 games under his belt. It's been very, very bad. Last year, when he played with Kyler Murray, I think he had less than 100 yards with like 11, 12 games played. It's absolutely nuts to see the type of production and the type of we're moving the ball around to different weapons when they're open and available. It's one of those things that it's another eye-opening situation. Now, we're not going to get a lot from Zay Jones, in my personal opinion, but he's a guy that can definitely very well do it. A veteran. He's 30 years old, 6'2", 200 pounds. There's some guys out there, maybe some other teams that can very well use a veteran like Zay. Maybe we offload him for a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick because he's doing it, man. He's doing it, and it's proven that Jacoby Brissett, or if any quarterback is willing to throw the ball to him, most of the time he's probably going to get that ball coming down his way. Now, of course, he's got some silly things here and there, but the receivers aren't going to catch 100% of targets thrown their way. It's just, that's not realistic. So those are my guys that I want to kind of talk about in terms of this trade deadline. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how the Cardinals end up handling this whole situation. I wish we were buyers, but realistically, we're not. The Cardinals most likely will be sellers. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are your overall thoughts here of this list? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Have a great rest of your day, and go Cardinals.